Welcome, everybody. Happy Friday. It is on the hour, and this is Gretchen Jordan. I'm the Alive Association Manager, and I'm here to welcome you to February Alive Academy. I'm going to turn it over to Jordania Reeves, our host for today. And again, a big welcome and thank you very much to Dana for being our presenter today. Go ahead, Jordania.
Well, welcome everyone. I'm so excited to be here and get to introduce our wonderful speaker. I'm going to get our slides pulled up here and get us started. All right. Well, again, welcome to the February Alive Academy. I'm pleased you could all join us today. This webinar is focusing on marketing and media with Dana Litwin presenting. Alive is very pleased to host this session, giving you an opportunity to learn the same media and marketing techniques used by the top global corporations to deepen engagement in your community and recruit volunteer talent, even with little or no budget. My favorite piece. This session is going to be 75 minutes long. If you can stay, if you can't stay the whole hour, and you remember, you can log into the Alive website and catch a replay later. But we hope that you can stay for the duration and definitely get in on that discussion at the end. A brief overview of today's agenda. We'll deal with some housekeeping notifications quickly, then introductions, and of course, we're all here for the presentation today. And we'll have time for questions and discussion afterwards. Stay tuned at the end to learn more about upcoming Alive Academy sessions. If you're having any trouble with audio or visual today, you've got options. You can keep us streaming in video on your computer, but call in from your phone with audio only. If you're having trouble with your bandwidth, sometimes calling in by your phone will help. Put any other tech questions for technical support, just put those in the chat box to the presenters only, and Gretchen can help you sort those out. And speaking of the chat box, if you want to talk to all attendees, be sure that you choose that function first. Otherwise, otherwise you're just going to keep talking to Gretchen and I, but we encourage you to chat with each other and share your experiences. And we'll be monitoring questions as we go along. I could not be more pleased to introduce Dana Litwin. Dana Litwin CVA is a globally recognized strategic advisor, speaker, and advocate for civil service. Since 2002, she has guided organizations in California's Silicon Valley and nationwide to produce breakthrough volunteer and community engagement programs. Dana is the creator of the YouTube channel Priceless Advice for Leaders of Volunteers, served as president of the Association of Leaders in Volunteer Engagement, ALIVE, and is a founder and facilitator at the National Alliance for Volunteer Engagement. Without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Dana, and we'll get started with the presentation.
Great, thanks, Jordania. Hello, friends, new and friends from many years ago. I'm going to share my screen. I cannot share my screen while the other participant is sharing, so I'll have Jordania stop her share. And
we'll get back to stop sharing.
Stop share. Stop share. Yeah, and there's going to be, we're going to go through some core concepts and some ideas, and then there will be time, at least in the last 15 minutes, maybe even 20 or a little bit longer, for open discussion and kind of brainstorming some sticky messages and things like that. So, or just open questions should be good. So I'm still viewing Jordania's screen.
I apologize. I'm trying to get it off here. Let me get off before, but
stop share.
Try now, Dana.
That's better. So everyone, the wonders of cyberspace and technology. Here we be. Here we go. Excellent. Great. Here's a picture of me from a few years ago, just to compare and contrast the extra gray hairs that have occurred in the last few years. But thank you all for coming. And again, if you've seen my presentations before in person or online, this is a highly interactive experience. So I know Jordania and Gretchen can keep an eye on the chat as I'm going through some of the slides and the ideas. But if you have questions as we go, that's great. We have a few poll questions for you to kind of see where everyone is with their marketing and media magic already, or what you want to lean towards in the open brainstorm or Q&A session. So we'll jump right in. By getting an error message on my computer, but now we will. So what we hope to get out of today are, that you understand what sticky messages are, and that you can start to very strategically apply language to your marketing message. And that doesn't mean it has to be fancy or complicated. It's actually simpler is better, and we'll get to that. And then there's maybe some media magic tips or tricks that have worked for me in the last several years. And again, we want to have time during and towards the end to really hear from the wisdom in the room and what's working from all of you, and what are some ideas that you can share with each other. And the point of all of this is that we're creating a high-touch experience. We're deepening current relationships. We're building up new relationships in all of our community engagement, not just around volunteer engagement, and that is a deep level of engagement. And we can have deep engagement with someone, whether it's a 5-second interaction or 5 minutes or weeks or months or years. It's just what positive impression or experience are they having that's resonating with them, that makes them want to come back, or if they can't come back logistically to do more volunteering, they at least become a fan and a good advocate out in the rest of the community. So poll question number 1, and Gretchen might be able to insert this so it's a little more formal. There we go. So please complete the poll on how much do you coordinate with your agency's current marketing and PR department. If there's a different answer than the one that we have put up for poll question number 1, feel free to add that into the chat as well. But I'll give you a few minutes to ponder the poll question, and I'm actually keep the poll up, Gretchen, but I'm going to jump into the next slide just to keep us rolling here.
Okay, and just feel free to answer that first question.
Yep.
Go ahead, Dana.
So what makes something sticky? And I know the poll's kind of covering it for a minute. And, really the word sticky comes from a pretty classic marketing phrase, and specifically some books that are written about, sticky marketing messages. But it boils down to, this can be as simple as a phrase you come up with on a Post-it note that you put on your computer screen or on your bulletin board. But ideally, your sticky messaging is aligned with your marketing department, it's aligned with the brand of the agency, and it's specific to whatever audience or audiences, we'll get into that, you are trying to reach. So there's very wideband sticky messaging that has a very wide appeal, and almost anyone might be interested in it. We'll get to some examples. But then there is very, targeted and specific demographic marketing that you probably already have some capability of doing. You just may not know that yet. But when we talk about sticky, it means something that is understandable, memorable, and effective in changing behavior. With great power comes great responsibility. So we want to use these powers for good, but that our sticky marketing or recruitment message is understandable, memorable, and effective in changing someone's mind about the agency, ideally in a positive way, and keeps people interested and engaged and coming back for more. Some of you may be familiar with kind of my foundational system or way of thinking about community and volunteer engagement, which are the 3 C's of happy teams, or the 3 C's of happy volunteers. And we're just going to weave this in and out. If this is the first time you're seeing it, don't worry, there's not a quiz at the end, there's no pressure. But just as I kind of use ideas like comfort, convenience, and connection, and a few of these T subcategories that are under each one, these are just things to think about and remember when we are creating any kind of in-person or online experience for clients, volunteers, donors, members of the community, but particularly around our team members we're working with, thinking about comfort around their task, their training, physical and emotional temperature, depending on what kind of work you're doing. Is it indoor or outdoors? Tummy and toilet, basic human comforts are very essential in the work. Some of these apply more or less to remote situations or in person, but keeping in mind someone's convenience, the use of their time, whether transportation or remote work is involved, the use of technology like we're doing today. But most importantly, what ties into media marketing magic in today's sticky situations is really the idea of connection, that there's a sense of trust that you're building up with people in the community, no matter what level of engagement they're having with you, and that for folks that are on the team with you, there's a sense that we're all in this together, that there's no us, them, unwelcoming, not belonging kind of communication happening consciously or unconsciously. So comfort, convenience, and connection leads to, people who are happy in their role, who are confident in the work that they're doing, who feel supported, they have the proper amount of resources to get the job done. And this applies whether someone's paid or unpaid. But a happy team member, especially a volunteer, is your best free advertising. Consistently, research shows us that the number one recruitment tool is word of mouth. That's still true. No matter how technology evolves or changes or enters our lives in new ways, someone having a great experience with your agency and the work and the role that they're doing is the best advertising and much better than anything that marketing or PR could buy in media placement. So we want to kind of work towards that goal. There's a lot of definitions of the word engagement today. We're really using it in the sense of specific to community engagement for our agencies and that work that might seem obvious, but engagement can mean very different things in different industries. So in the gaming or tech or app industry, engagement means what are the sheer number of eyeballs and time someone spends looking at an ad or playing a game or dealing with your piece of technology or your app. And we want to think about engagement as a deeper relationship. So rather than only raw numbers in a transactional experience, we're really looking at engagement as a transformational experience. And it really does start with the words we use in marketing and the kinds of messages that we put out there as to whether someone resonates with what we want them to do and what we're asking them to do as volunteers or donors or voters or advocates, and whether or not that's going to turn off certain other audiences and make them automatically feel unwelcome as an unintended consequence. Never hurts to have a cute animal in your stock photo, rule number 1. So the term sticky was coined around 2007 and specifically in a book by Chip and Dan Heath called Made to Stick: Why Some Ideas Survive and Others Die. And it's now considered a marketing, holy book. And they came up with, Chip and Dan came up with this acronym SUCCESS, which is a sticky message should be simple, unexpected, concrete, get to that, credible, emotional, create an emotional response, tell a story or involve stories, and most importantly, be simple. I think sometimes we try to get too clever in marketing language, and we actually want to keep things really accessible and simple as much as possible. Here's my favorite example of a simple message. Hopefully all of you recognize this. Maybe you have an article of clothing that has this motto on it, but this took Nike years and millions of dollars to come up with this advertising phrase. Just do it. It doesn't have to be a difficult task for you to come up with a simple message for recruitment, donor engagement, any of that. We're not a giant corporation trying to copyright a phrase like Nike is. So, feel free to share ideas, or as my friend Craig Young likes to say, share seamlessly and steal shamelessly. You don't have to have an original idea, but as long as it's simple and effective, then we're on the right path. Unexpected means it's kind of how humor works, or how jokes are set up, but there might be a little element of a surprise or a punchline or a twist. And this usually happens in a little bit longer messaging. It may not be something like join our team. That's not too surprising. But if you get into deeper conversations or designing different kinds of messaging pillars or designing something for a specific audience, it's fun to kind of keep something that's a little fun twist in mind to just make it land a little better. So we think about a concrete idea as something that, like, just do it. It sticks in your brain. Before everyone signed on, we were talking about Encanto, and I'm going to put an earworm in your brain because it's so effective. We don't talk about Bruno. So there can be just a few words that kind of start to light up interest for you, and especially if it's relatable and kind of starts to feel like a proverb. So something as simple as just do it is like, oh yeah, that's a pretty simple phrase. It's an idiom. It resonates with a wide audience, and it's very, very clear. The hardest thing for any brand or agency or organization is credibility. And if there's been anything that your agency has done in the past that has caused accidental or purposeful harm in the community, or there's been a PR gaffe, or somebody tweeted the wrong thing at the wrong time and it reflected badly, that can break a very, very delicate trust within the agency. So the first thing when you're designing marketing, messaging, or communications in general is, does something pass the sniff test? Is it aligned with the agency brand, and does it build on trust, or does it break down trust? So that's kind of what we mean by credible. Gretchen, what were the results of that first poll question real quick?
Let me share the results, and I'm editing the next poll.
Nice.
There you go.
Neato. So this gives me an idea of where everyone are. And this is kind of where I figured it would fall. I figured it would be sometimes we're aligned, but things could get better, because otherwise, why would you tune in other than to, see my goofy face? And acknowledging that sometimes you are a department of one and you don't have all the time and resources and bandwidth to do all of this. So that helps me get an idea of where we are. And that's really, really good. So getting into an emotional response around messaging. So we want to tap into emotions to convey our point. As human people, we're wired to feel things for people and things that relay emotions and relationships, more so than we're wired to feel an emotion about an abstract idea or something material. Doesn't mean people can't be attached to their cars or nice collectibles of stuff or whatever, but we really want to tie in a personal experience, story, emotion, and create an emotional resonance for folks that ideally are having a positive emotional resonance. Now, we are in a time of data mining and advertising where there was very recently, in fact, so recent I couldn't quite make its own slide for it, but the New York Times offers its advertisers 18 different emotional points. So an advertiser for the New York Times can choose which of 18 emotions or feelings that they want to evoke from their audience. And the algorithm, the AI, and a little bit of human marketing savvy will help design an ad and place ads with audiences or on social media platforms that resonate with that emotion. Now, it's all fun and games to rage against the machine, but not when the machine has learned to feed off of anger or fear or manipulation. So again, great power comes great responsibility. We want to use our emotional cues ideally for a positive effect, and not necessarily one that's about guilt or fear or negative emotion, no matter how much your PR firm tells you to go for those things. And that really comes down to stories. What stories are we telling about the work of the agency? What stories are resonating with the community, with sections of the community as audiences that we want to reach, to want to create a deeper engagement? So whatever client I'm working with in whatever sector, from zoos to veterans to developing a new VMS tech, whatever it is, I feel like everyone in the agency, not just volunteers, not just you and your PR department, everyone should have a 3-word tagline about the agency or volunteering or donating. You should also have for everyone a 30-second elevator pitch, and those same points, those 3 words, that 30-second short pitch, can be converted pretty comfortably into a 3-minute conversation, or at least some bullet points that can lead up to a few minutes of a conversation. And for those who aren't familiar with the term elevator pitch, it comes from a Hollywood saying that if you happen to have the luck to be in an elevator with a big director or producer, you've probably got about 30 seconds between floor to pitch your film or your show or your movie. So that's where elevator pitch comes from. But it's really about what's that very effective success acronym of talking to people and communicating things. Poll question number 2, Gretchen. Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun.
What do you think about the message you have now? Is it good? Is it terrible? Is it working? Is it sometimes working?
Let's see, poll number 2.
Are you getting message blocked by someone higher up in the organization? Because that happens. If you're in a very siloed organization, people can get weird about what's their job and what's your job. And so we don't want people to get weird about stuff. And I want them to be able to work together.
We've already got the results. People voted.
They jumped ahead. I love it when you guys are everyone's so good. We're jumping ahead. So that's number 1. Ooh, number 2. Great. So again, pretty much where I thought we'd go, with a vast majority of like, I have no idea, and this is why I'm here, Dana, get on with it, to it's probably pretty good, but let's make it a little more clear. Let's do a little bit better. I like that one person is like, I don't know why I'm here. I know all this already. We'll unmute you, and we can share wisdom in the room for that. And as I sadly predicted, somebody's been trying to do this and someone else has blocked them. So in our kind of open discussion in the last 15, 20 or so minutes of the session, we will get into how to problem solve or manage up to maybe help that problem as well. Thank you so much, Gretchen. I can close that poll and move right along. So a quick review to, again, kind of help be sticky in your memory of the who, what, why, where, and how of marketing and media magic. So the who is the most important part. Who are you trying to communicate with? And how are they in a stakeholder relationship? Are they constituents or clients that use your programs? Are they donors? Are they voters? Are they advocates? Are they media partners, like people at radio stations or television stations that you want to work with directly and do stories about your agency? And do they already know you? Do you have a warm relationship? Is there a warm introduction where there's already some knowledge of each other, you've worked together before, or the much more difficult cold introduction where someone might be getting lots and lots of spammy emails, and how does yours stand out? That's its own $1 million question within marketing in any industry, is how to get that cold call. But I really want to focus on a deeper engagement, which is much more warm and really building on relationships you already have to build out that circle of influence and relationships from that. Because really, we're not really selling anything. We're trying to give services away for the most part. And a lot of agencies I've worked with, especially nature-based or parks or rec, like, people don't have to pay for anything we're doing. We're just trying to get them to come out in nature for free, and it's healthy, and that's still a challenge with brand and marketing to communicate that effectively. So hopefully some of you know a classic marketing model of a pyramid or a ladder, thanks to my buddy Travis for letting me use this graphic, because this isn't how this works anymore. So points to Travis years ago. He's a good guy for putting this together. But this is a classic way of thinking about engagement, which is very hierarchical, and it's very pushing people, herding them, maybe a border collie nipping at their heels, herding them into one direction of highest engagement, and like a video game. Like, that's something that's an achievement to unlock. So they started off as a tourist passing through, and we pushed them up the pyramid to become a board member and a major donor. That's all fine. A lot of people are still using this model. However, let me invite you to think of it this way. This is a much more non-linear, holistic, and I think realistic to the world that we're in way of thinking about engagement with folks. They might be a fan on social media, liking and sharing and reposting things like Corinne and I do every day on LinkedIn and Facebook. Or you might be hoping that they interact as a board member, as a volunteer, as a client, as a donor. But the reality is that people shift between this relationship with your agency all the time. They can be all of these things at the same time. They can be one or two of these things for a certain amount of time, minutes, hours, weeks, days, months, years. Or they can just blip in as a fan or a one-time volunteer and just go back to the outer orbit, and maybe you never see them again. And all of that is fine. We don't want to try so hard that it seems constantly urgent or desperate for engagement or interaction. If you make adjustments to how you approach engagement to this holistic model and you're still having trouble, and we've clarified a message, and our colleagues today have brainstormed a cool message for you to start using, and 6 months from now it still seems like it's not working, something else needs to be adjusted. So kind of keeping this in mind, that meeting people where they are and letting them choose how much time and how much of their talent and in what way they're supporting your agency is absolutely essential to our current world situation. My favorite kinds of words. What words do we use? We use action words. Join, team, good. We want to focus on hope and not fear. As I mentioned, and as we've all experienced, just in the last several news cycles, there's a lot of fear and anger button pushing that's done very deliberately for clicks and likes and that kind of advertiser engagement online. But ideally, even if we're dealing with an agency mission that's pretty heavy, like animal welfare or foster families or suicide prevention or addiction treatment, even if the mission can lead to compassion fatigue, it's very important to frame your marketing messaging more in hope and empowerment than it is in fear and anger. And this is a lesson that's been learned with a lot of research in conservation around climate action and climate change. So most conservation messaging is really around fear and despair or guilt. And even though that's very commonly used, by the data, it's not effective. It makes people tune out and feel overwhelmed. And as a lifelong environmentalist conservationist and working for agencies like this, when we've adjusted our marketing language to be more, this is the action you can take today to make a positive impact, this is the hope we have by taking these actions, it will lead to this real result, that's much more meaningful and impactful. It's also important, and I think a lot of you hopefully are already doing this, that whatever volunteer engagement or whatever roles you're hoping for, again with donors, that there's a specific job title to it, that it's never just volunteer with us. It's like, well, what does that mean? You know, be a penguin cuddler at the San Francisco Zoo, help socialize baby penguins. That sounds much more appealing than just volunteer with us in a very general way. The other thing that a lot of agencies aren't yet doing is another marketing or advertising kind of classic piece of wisdom, which is that you need to communicate things at a 6th grade language level. And that's not dumbing it down. That actually helps with accessibility and equity. And it makes the message automatically appeal to potentially a wider audience. It gives access to a wider audience when you move away from jargon and words that might be very specific to, in my case, I'll use conservation again, of like, we're going to clear invasive plants from the riparian area on Saturday the 24th. Feel free to add your confusion to the chat at what I just said. Or, we're going to pull weeds and do a creek cleanup on Saturday the 24th. Pretty major difference between how you might talk about something internally in your agency and kind of keeping the language much more simple and accessible out into the big wide world. The reason that 6th grade is kind of the level that is the most effective is that helps people who are not only non-native English speakers, if you're advertising in whatever language, but I'm going to fall back on English, but this is true if you're primarily in Tagalog speaking, Spanish speaking, Russian speaking, whatever language you're dealing with, it's good to kind of keep it at a tween or teen level of reading comprehension or language comprehension. And this also helps for anyone who is neurodivergent and they're processing language or reading words or seeing numbers differently than other folks or a majority of folks are. So it's really an accessibility issue. And how many of you saw this Tuesday tip that I just posted a couple weeks ago about never say need? We'll answer that in the chat. How's the chat looking? Brittany did. Yay, Brittany. I think you commented on it too. I know Karina saw it. Yay, Karina. The most common thing I've ever seen, the most common phrase is we need volunteers, and it is so ineffective. It's so common and it's so ineffective. I see global organizations doing this. I see local organizations doing this, and they're all like, why isn't this working? Well, it creates, to give the 10-second version of the Tuesday tip, it creates an automatic discomfort, an unconscious discomfort to maybe you're joining a sinking ship. Like, why is this agency in so much chaos that they constantly urgently need people all the time? Like, I don't want to get thrown into a big messy situation where they constantly need people. Once in a while someone will resonate with that, but it's much more effective, as we discussed, to use kind of more hopeful action words or something specific for a call to action. Yep. And then my screen wants me to do this because I just looked at that. And that really comes down to listening. Whether you're doing volunteer surveys or community surveys or donor surveys, I mean, hopefully you're doing all of it. But listening and meeting the community where they are is essential. There can be, and so many people have great specific sessions on diversity, equity, inclusion, justice, access, belonging, things like that, that speak to this. But active listening is so important. I cannot emphasize enough how just really listening to the people that are using your services, to your team members, paid or unpaid. Everyone wants to feel valued and heard. And so any opportunity to get new information and be willing to adapt with that new information, you're not going to do everything everyone suggests because sometimes they're opposite, but that helps you get into showing and telling what you're really doing effectively as an agency. And it also tells you that this is when and how you need to change your messaging. If you're listening to people saying, I don't know what a riparian corridor is and why would I care? Like, oh, creek cleanup for the whole family. That sounds much more fun. And you know, the public's memory is very short. So if you stumble on something, course correct it as quickly as possible, and hopefully if it wasn't a giant screw up, they'll forget and they'll switch to whatever the new message is. And this gets into one of my favorite things to do, and this is also a fun special project for volunteers or interns who are interested in media to do, which is showing and telling. So what are you creating in marketing material and collateral that is transparent to the work you're doing? Not just a nice shiny annual report brochure, which usually only the board sees or cares about, but feel free to jump into gamification, data visualization, creating fun graphics. If that's something that's fun for you to do and you want to take it on, great. If you don't have the bandwidth, I can tell you from experience that there are so many people at different stages in their life and their career that are studying GIS, Geographic Information Systems, or data visualization. So many people need an opportunity as a volunteer, as an intern, to just build up their resume and practice their skills. They have their own software. You don't have to get anybody anything. But if you have some fun data to share and you want to kind of zhuzh it up, spice it up, and make it look sticky and sexy in all the right ways, get someone to do a special project to visualize that data in a really fun and effective way. Classic marketing, WIFM. What's in it for me? Why should anybody care about what you're saying, about what your agency does? Some people won't care. There's plenty of audience out there that will not resonate with whatever groove you're doing. That's fine. We just want the agency messaging, and specifically recruitment, volunteers, donors, advocates, to resonate with these fans, that fan nonlinear model of whatever role it is. It can be specified to the role. Again, targeting a certain audience. That, you know, the messaging for new board members might be slightly different than the penguin chick cuddler or the creek cleanup crew leader or whatever you're doing. But really it comes down to people will care about what resonates for them and what's in it for them. That doesn't mean that they need a lot of novelty trinkets or certificates and plaques and things like that, but they're getting something out of the experience. They're getting a social thing, they're getting a sense of meaningful work, of belonging, of community, of giving back. All of those are kind of these positive emotional reactions we want to cause. And, you know, define the agency's why. Not just the mission statement, which is often too long, but what's the core of the why someone should work with you, and what is in it for them. So if you can describe that full range of meaningful impact that they're having, all the better. I'm going to have people answer this in the chat. Why do people volunteer? Yeah. Yeah, and Jerry's like years after you joined AVA asked for this pitch, the very question. Yeah, it feels good. People want to make friends, makes them feel good because they were asked. They want to make a difference, giving back because they were asked. Connect the community, social, find purpose, social impact, make friends. All of these are correct. Congrats to everybody. Gretchen will send you a cookie. I don't know if Gretchen has any cookies. Sorry, Gretchen, I just threw you under the cookie bus. These are all correct because people volunteer because they want to. There's 8 billion different reasons why someone would volunteer, but it boils down to they want to. Gretchen, Angie's waiting for her cookie, so we better get on that. We don't know what everybody's journey is. We don't have time to figure it out, but when we can create a clear agency why, a clear, hopeful, impactful, action-y word message to have as our 3-word pitch, our 30-second elevator pitch, or our 3-minute conversation, that helps people self-select. And that does the work for you. That saves your time to have clear marketing messaging so that people can decide themselves, I want to work here, This is why, because something in this feels good. Again, even if it's chopping onions or taking care of animals or cleaning up a mess, people are getting a good feeling out of it somehow. Thank you all for your correct answers. Thank you for the digital cookies that are going through the chat. So the barriers to engagement, again, this is covered in really great detail in a lot of other presentations, some that I do, and we can show you some other Alive academies that have kind of gone into access and equity. But most of the time, for most people, the barriers are going to be financial. Again, that connection piece of, does it cost time, transportation, or technology to participate? Those can all be good or bad. A language barrier, again, not just agency jargon that's used internally that the public doesn't understand, but are you communicating only in one primary language of the community, or are you communicating in the second and third most common languages in that community as well? Are there people anywhere on your team, paid or unpaid, that speak other languages? Can you tap into their talents for quick translations or to help write up or translate messages and then get somebody else to do it? There's also very often in most communities, and again, everything is online, there are ethnic media stations and organizations that will work with you to do this, to specific journals or newspapers in Vietnamese or Chinese or whatever that are within the community, and you can create partnerships to cross language barriers in that way. Access, again, time, transportation, cost, physical ability, mobility access, sight, hearing access, and just the biggest barrier of all is that people don't know that your agency exists. It's brand awareness. And that's, so many millions of things are competing for our attention all the time. A sticky marketing message helps potentially raise your agency brand awareness, your overall agency brand awareness. And again, a happy volunteer, someone having a good experience in any kind of interaction with your agency, an email, a phone call gets returned right away, they have a pleasant conversation, people aren't like, I don't know what you're talking about, click. Any interaction is that invitation to stay or go. And that all impacts the level of awareness that the rest of the community is going to have about the work that your agency is doing, the effectiveness of the work, and whether or not they've even heard of you. So where do we find these ever elusive audiences to communicate with? Well, who are your current community connections? Everybody knows somebody. How many of you have played the game 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon? I guess we all know Kevin Bacon within 6 other friends, probably. But that is really going to influence your marketing and really your whole outreach strategy. If you are a department of one, then again, you've got a little bit more to balance. But if you can coordinate with your marketing and PR department, and they've already done a lot of this work and a lot of this audience identification, or you can maybe give them hints of, you know what, for volunteers, we would love to get more speakers of Hawaiian to work with us. Then you go, oh, that's really interesting. How do we do that together? So where you're trying to reach your audience has a huge influence. I see a question, so I'm going to pop into the questions real quick. Nicole asks, is it wrong to put an ad out in a different language to get volunteers to help serve clients who speak the language, but staff doesn't speak the language? Nicole, you're never wrong. You're never wrong. As long as somebody can interact with those volunteers who speaks their language, that's fine. It doesn't have to be paid staff. There are also check-into a lot of community centers to specific neighborhoods where there's a majority non-English speaking language. I've done a ton of great partnership work with Vietnamese speaking community centers, Chinese, specifically Cantonese, because that's usually more common for folks from certain areas in San Francisco, where I'm from, to immigrate to speak Cantonese and not as much Mandarin. So kind of knowing what language the community that you're hoping to engage with is speaking, and then that also starts to build up a really nice momentum of the more people hear their own language and feel welcomed in their own language, then you have more people willing to join and do that work, or occasional remote translation if they don't have time to turn up in person, or do a more committed volunteer role. So yeah, doesn't have to be paid staff, but if you can arrange that somebody speaks that language and can translate, then that's super effective. I've done a ton of boothing events back in the before times with, oddly enough, where I was working in San Jose, there's a huge Portuguese speaking population. It's second only to the New England area, huge Portuguese speakers. I had a volunteer who was an attorney, South American based law firm, although worked in California, and he spoke fluent business level Spanish and fluent business level Portuguese. And his name is Ted. We brought Ted everywhere when we were in San Jose. And he was happy as a volunteer to do that in addition to his other volunteer duties. So you've always got someone who can do that. That sounds good. It's been answered. Great. All right. Boop. How do I do it? Sorry, I'm trying to make it go away. I'm not dismissing anyone. Yes. You rock. You know what? Typing under pressure, not my strong suit, but here we go. There we go. Oh man, there's we go. Okay. Technology is fun. Gretchen, if you can help me clear the question tab. Maybe you go into chat. Does that help?
Got it. There's no.
Oh, there we go. I got it. It was a thing. It's a
all
thing.
right.
Sorry. So it's all good.
Carry on. Carry on.
We're good. So use your community connections. Find out who knows whomst else, and what they have to offer as far as other connections, making a warm intro instead of a cold intro to a media partner, especially an ethnic media partner, to a radio station to do a free PSA, to anything that you want to brainstorm about, or even if you're recruiting for a very specifically skilled volunteer role, utilize these community connections first and foremost. What we don't need in our lives is more spam email. So we're going to talk in a second about how you're utilizing an email program or your volunteer management software, talking to a CRM, client relational management database. How is your automated communication working? Because that can be one of the things that turns people off the most. If they're getting too many emails, or the emails are too long, they will potentially unsubscribe and then miss any other important news. So how you're using automated communications, especially email programs or text burst apps, is a really good piece to examine, and just, kind of ruthlessly evaluate, like, what's your open rate? Who's reading this? Is it a pretty good open and response rate? And change the manner in which you're communicating or the technology you're using to communicate if it's not working. And again, this might seem obvious, but we get into these patterns where, I don't know, I inherited iContact or MailChimp, and that's just what we use. And we have a 5% open rate, which is terrible, but I don't know, we just keep sending people information, and then our volunteers say they don't ever get the information, and I don't know why that is. So it becomes this kind of spammy loop, to make sure that you don't get caught in that loop or in that whirlpool and get dragged down into that. Sticky hooks, speaking of music. So the idea of sticky can also be paired with another marketing and also a music term called a hook. And a hook is the piece of a song, usually a chorus, that really gets to be your earworm. And we already mentioned some Disney tunes, so I won't get into trouble with Disney by talking about them more. But how can you really get your audience engaged and create a material with which they want to interact, or content or types of conversations or relationships where they want to interact? And then when you have them hooked in, that sticky hook, then you can start to measure which pieces of your content or your media or your marketing that you're putting out are most effective. So you're probably already using a program, whether you realize it or not, that can track data, that can tell you trends, that can write reports. And it might be your email marketing program, it might be your larger database system that you're using or volunteer management software. But those all inherently have ways of reporting out what's working and what isn't, and that helps you hone in on how to be more sticky. Has anyone seen this emotion color guide before? Answer in the chat. Bye, Kelly. You'll get the recording. Great. And to Betsy, yeah, my favorite, every interaction's invitation to stay or go. So how many people have seen this? No, but it's cool. I know, Gretchen. Isn't it cool? This is true. Again, someone else's many millions of dollars in research and development have figured out long ago, probably I'm going to say 1940s or 50s of the 20th century, these colors evoke these emotions and these feelings. So that's part of deciding what's your sticky hook, what's the core, is there a positive emotion that you want to associate with this message, with your brand, with your agency. And these are without a doubt the colors that go with that. So if you have any input on graphic design, and again, everyone in your marketing or PR department will absolutely know what this is and hopefully are following it. But this is that trick that corporations do, the trick of going into a fast food restaurant and it's all orange and yellow. That makes you cheerful, it feels warm, and it also, quite frankly, makes you hungry. So there are physical responses to if someone isn't colorblind or they have, full vision and full sight. But there's a very deep brain programming associated with color in our cultures. Particularly North America, it can vary around the world for slightly different meanings, but we're in such a global corporate world that, most people, even in fairly remote areas of the planet, have been inundated with this kind of color-coded marketing by major corporations for so long that it applies. So choose your color palette wisely, not just what looks good, but what unconscious emotional reaction you want to invoke. And that's why you see a lot of politicians wearing blue suits and red ties. Never a red suit and a blue tie, but you see a lot of navy blue suits for trust and strength and dependability, and then you see like a splash of red for bold or excitement. So platform balance, talking about, whatever CRM programs or email marketing you're using, you may or may not have access to your agency's social media. Again, that's kind of its own workshop, is who has access? Do volunteers post on social media? And I think, was it Karina or someone else who's on today just had a post about where do you draw the line between maybe your personal Facebook or Twitter and an agency one, or connecting with volunteers. That's all internal policy to figure out. However, absolutely leverage fans, likes, reposts, cross-posting, and don't just think only of the online community, although so much is online and so much is remote, but utilize these same relationships to have those one-on-one conversations, to create those advocates within the community. I have my YouTube channel, I create little videos and sometimes longer interviews. I have a longer interview with Brittany Coe coming out, I think this weekend. But if you don't know how to do these things, or you don't have the time, bandwidth, interest in doing these things, again, lots of other volunteers or interns specific to media programs or marketing programs would love to project lead on this. And you can empower someone within certain guidelines or a style guide or messaging pillars of the agency if you get permission to do this as a special project. Hand this stuff off to a good data cruncher and you'll have a good time with it. I'm going to dip into the chat for a minute because it looks like something's fun happening. So more advice from Brittany, can't handle it. Brandy, you have a great question. Can someone share what email message system you use? She's using, or they are using, MailChimp. So everyone put in the chat what email marketing system you have. And I also want you to put in the chat what volunteer management software system you have, because some VMSs talk to certain database or CRMs or other kinds of donor module databases better or differently than others. So let's throw that in there. So I'm seeing a lot of Constant Contact, a lot of MailChimp, Constant Contact Logistics, Visas One Live, which is great, Better Impact, and email, that's great. Volunteer Mark, never heard of that one. So I'm seeing, oh, Outlook. I'm so sorry, Sarah. I'm so sorry you have Outlook. I may not be able to help you on your journey if you have Outlook. But that's okay. Volunteer Track, Logistics, lots of Logistics in MailChimp. Galaxy Digital and Django Mail does a great job together. So yeah, and Volunteer Hub, they all have pros and cons. And again, sometimes you are in control of purchasing the volunteer management software system or the email system, or you have some say in it, and sometimes you don't. And sometimes you have to advocate to a different department or the IT department to allow access to something, or allow a donor database to talk to your volunteer database, to talk to your data collecting back end of your website. All of that. Susan, I'm so sorry you just switched to Outlook. Everyone send Susan an extra cookie. Yeah, Outlook is terrible if you haven't gleaned that from me, but we do what we have to do. And then things like Gov delivery. So Renee, you make a really good point in the chat. And thank you, Gretchen, for plugging my YouTube channel. Yeah, Brandy, you switched to Outlook. Outlook is a bummer with a capital B. Outlook is like trying to run something in 1995 on a modem all the time. So everyone gets a lot of things. So Renee has a really great point that sometimes your agency, especially a government agency, has a very tight, or healthcare, hospitals, hospices have a very locked down privacy firewall security system, and it's very difficult, sometimes impossible, to get IT to change that or those settings to have programs talk to each other. Do your best, but I'm acknowledging that there's an array of tools out there. You may or may not have the power to adjust that tool or get one that works a little better. But what you can start to do is collect any data that you can from that or from other departments, or again, put a volunteer on a special project and see, and then you can show and tell, show the data, visualize the data, and say, look, we're getting really low engagement with Outlook and it's causing these problems and these programs can't talk to each other. Here's my pitch to switch to something else that costs the exact same or talks to Outlook a little better or somehow will improve the situation. So use those data-driven things to get to that. Yeah, someone else in down Galaxy Digital. Great. Moving right along. We're cruising. We'll still have time in the last 10-15 minutes. So speaking of which, poll question number 3. It's okay if you've already answered it because we kind of put the polls up all at once. So do you think you're using all of the functions? Are you using all of the functionality, all of the potential bells and whistles that you could in the VMS or the email or the CRM program that you have? Let's scroll down and find out. No, but tell me how. 48%. We have some winners. This is why you're here. Hopefully this is very helpful. Yeah, a few people are, and I'm going to guess it's going to be the Better Impact or Visas One people, maybe the Logistics, but that's pretty hard. Not as familiar with Galaxy, so maybe. But yeah, some of the bells and whistles are really obvious, and the VMS company or techs, show them all to you right away. Some of them are a little more cryptic or not intuitive to learn, but just as effective, especially in being able to run reports on data and engagement or tying together with your email question. We had an untitled question number 4 that people responded to. That's very adventurous. I appreciate that. So using some automated communication, but could be better. Good, good, good. So how you get things to talk to each other without a budget. That's the part. Jordania was like, I'm most interested in the part that doesn't cost any money. Girl, same. Girl, same. So some of my favorite things that don't cost you any more money that you can do right now include using already existing free apps in suites. Google, HubSpot has a free thing. YouTube, Vimeo, create, have a team of people create a little fun video social media content channel. That's a super fun project for someone in media studies or marketing to do. We'll use a lot of like Doodle polls, SurveyMonkey, things like that. For some of you who might have a Salesforce, you can get typically extremely expensive Salesforce CRM for free if you're a nonprofit and you apply to their grants. It's a little bit of a process, but that gets you, a $20,000 a year license for a really complicated system. The caveat that I say with Salesforce is make sure that you have a volunteer or someone around or on staff, or again, turn it into a special project, who's really good at Salesforce. So yes, it can be free and usually expensive, but it's very, very complex and very customizable, and one wrong click can destroy everything. So my little asterisk with Salesforce is to make sure that somebody knows how to do it. And really this boils down to, do you need a lot of high-tech stuff to get this done, or can you do this with analog things, with paper files and phone calls and sending birthday cards to people and putting up posters at the library or mailing out flyers or having teachers at schools hand out flyers? The answer is both. The idea with creating marketing messages and all of this is really just, what are the tools in the toolbox you have? Do you have an opportunity to change any or update any of those tools, or are they doing okay, and are you getting the most out of them? We're going to so again, I'm gonna guess, I'm gonna bet you everyone a cookie. Most of the programs that you're in, apps and things that you're already using, or the data that your marketing department is already collecting from all the social media stuff that they're doing, if it's not yet aligned with you, that's information. We want this information to be human-centered but data-driven, and that's what leads to kind of customization and building community, and that ties back together to our 3 C's of creating comfort, convenience, connection. So it doesn't have to be high tech, but it should all be high touch in that sense. And mainly, a couple of warnings before we get into our last like 10 minutes of getting into questions and brainstorming. Everything has to be sincere. Again, it should be obvious, but I run into this a lot where someone's just kind of making stuff up, and it's like, I don't know if that's really feels sincere or true. And also that you're not trying too hard, that if you're 40 years old and you're trying to talk to teenagers and you don't have any teenagers in your immediate vicinity and you're not sure what's going on, don't be like this meme where it just seems like, oh, someone's trying too hard to reach this audience and it doesn't come across as sincere. And it's kind of an inappropriate use of lingo or jargon, and slang. But again, get a wide range of ages of volunteers, and a lot of this can be remote, to help you with these tasks. And one of my favorite tips around mentoring is get a mentor who's a lot younger than you. If you're in your 20s, find a teenager. At least start a conversation, maybe not a full mentorship, but you're really learning from each other across different age groups and different levels of comfort with technology that aren't necessarily tied into different age groups can be very, very effective way to not make this mistake. So again, kind of getting into this very high touch goal and relationship building, and I want to, we know about trust and together. So I want to get into some questions and brainstorming. Your deep engagement should be, again, data-driven and human-centered, and even if you have some success right away with, oh, we're getting more posts and likes, really think about deep engagement as a long-term strategy. It's great when you get some early wins and milestones, but this is long-term work. It's not just flash in the pan and following the trends that occur. I just have a lot of great stock photos, and I just wanted to share them with you because I have a subscription to several stock photo places, and I think these are really cool. So in getting into our shared goals, that's really part of the why and what's resonating with people. And if there has been harm in the past that your agency's done in the community and you're trying to rectify it, a great way to find that common ground, or what are the shared goals that still exist between your agency, the volunteers, the community, if trust has been lost. So let's brainstorm. We're not doing breakout rooms, but I want to kind of have this be open time for you all to think about. We can answer in the chat, or we can ask to unmute some of you if you want to, of what are some of your current marketing, if you have a 3-word thing, and what are some to brainstorm. And my favorites that I've used these and they've been effective. It's been easy. Work with us to, whatever your specific role is, protect nature, join our team. So Gretchen might be able to help me in the chat, or Jordania can help me as hostess with the mostess for brainstorming. And let's see in the chat if you already have a 2 or 3 word quick little marketing messaging pitch. But let's hear from the wisdom in the room, and I can also use this time as you put ideas in the chat to answer any outstanding questions. Yeah, Canva's great. So I fully support using Canva as a design tool. Brittany, rescue food. Yep, very good. Make a difference. Classic. Kicking around new branding for the New York Association of Volunteer Administrators. Colleagues supporting you. I like it. And Jerry, free suggestion, colleagues might work. Peers might be better. Shorter word. Peers supporting you, supporting your peers. That might be great too. Agency tagline, inspiring possibilities, works well for volunteer recruitment. Great. 2 to 3 words. Kelly's got partner language. Volunteers are partners in our mission and make a difference. Make a friend, be a friend. We are the difference. When action change lives, meet compassion. Help youth find their spark. Ooh, that's a good one, Karen. I like that. So these are all pretty effective. And again, kind of to Jerry's point, like, okay, colleagues, it's not that big of a word. A lot of people know what colleagues are, but you know, what's a shorter word? So just kind of running that exercise for yourself of, if you have a longer word or something that might be a little more towards sector jargon or something like that, then you know, how much can you simplify something? And that's a great writing exercise in general, or creative exercise, is how can you boil things down to their simplest elements or their simplest points and still be very effective. Yeah, I think peers is friendlier too. Be a community builder with us. Help save lives. Angie, for real, blood bank, healthcare, help save lives. So your check is in the mail. Exactly. Famous lie, Jerry. That doesn't pass the sniff test. That's not credible at all. You lose points for credibility. Be a patient pal. I love it. So another little fun trick is alliteration. So Marie has a great thing with kind of alliteration or rhyme. Each one tell one. I like that as well. So I also had a recent Tuesday, actually it was a blog post for Points of Light that talks about prosody in, and that's too much of a jargony word, but it's really the types of words and their flow and their rhythm. So this is again used a lot in music or poetry, but each one tell one when you're repeating a word. And you don't have to be so fancy or so original. Copy from each other, use these ideas, bounce ideas off of peers, a quick thing here or there. The other way to test things out or to test out phrases is the hashtag test. And that's why TikTok sounds better than TalkTick. Thank you. Gee, help them thrive from birth to 5. Ooh, Annette, you might win. And it's more than 3 words, but I like it. It's got a good flow. But you can hashtag a phrase and see how it lands, see how it trends. Hashtags are free. Social media memory is very, very short. So if you try to get something trending with a new hashtag or phrase, and again, not a ton of long words, but a pretty simple hashtag, and you find that that's really clicking and it's getting traction and resonating with people, that's a really great piece of data and feedback. Earworm alert. Yeah, exactly. No more Disney songs. No more earworms. And I also want to open it up. Do people have any questions for me, or would you like me to go to any other slides and kind of roll back to some points? You do get copy of the slide deck. There's a recording of this session with all of your wisdom shared. Or does anyone want to unmute and share what your 30-second elevator pitch is for your agency in the last 5 minutes or so that we have. We will find a way to unmute you somehow by magic.
Yeah, just put it in the chat if you want to talk, and I can push the magic button behind the curtain to allow that person to talk.
So while folks are doing that, and it's again understandable if people have to hop off, but Kelsey asked, are there specific data points to pay attention to when considering marketing techniques? Yes. If you are doing email open rates, anything above 50% of an email open rate is a miracle. It's extraordinary if you get more than a 50% open rate. Most marketers or advertisers are going to be happy with like a 20 to 30% open rate. But if you're getting more than 50% open rate, you're doing something really great with your marketing messaging and your email. On social media, you want to pay attention to, you know, what's getting likes, what's getting views. Behind the scenes email data, again, depending on the email program you're using, but most of them and most modern VMSs have this functionality or can tie into it as well of the specific demographics of your audience. So again, social media is geared towards very, very, for better or for worse, very, very targeted marketing for how people think and feel. So your feed or your page is, by the algorithm, by the AI, very heavily targeted, and most backends of websites that are tied into an email program or the email program itself, or many, not all, many modern volunteer management software systems can also report out that data of what type of person, what demographic is looking at your stuff, and that can help you understand, like, well, I'd really like to reach people in this zip code who fall into this tax bracket or this age background, and I'm not. And why isn't it getting to them? Are they not seeing it, or do they just not care? So that's the kind of data points that you can start to look at. And you don't have to be the expert on any kind of marketing or technology. It's great to know these things and have these tips and these basics, but absolutely delegate and draft and bring onto your team, or find the talent that already exists that loves to do the data analysis and the crunching. This also ties into survey designs. If you're doing annual or more often or less often client surveys or donor surveys or volunteer surveys, that's designed to give you qualitative and quantitative specific data points to help you make decisions. It's not just, does everyone feel good? Like, it can be that simple. Jenny, yep, Pew Research is a great way to dig into that. And Kelly's asking, how would you suggest partnering with other teams in large orgs? Our external relations team owns monthly key messages and also has a heavy involvement in any volunteer communication. We don't own any social media. We have to submit creative briefs and requests. We rarely email volunteers any communication without their brand edits. So, Kelly, that's fine. You don't necessarily want to drastically change from the agency's brand. You want to align with it. So when you frame it to other departments, that we're not trying to correct you necessarily, unless they're using need all the time, but bring data to them. So bring, Dr. Sue has, on Volunteer Commons, has a lot of very specific research and demographic research, and there's other resources that we can post after this that some are already on the Live's website, and I can share some links, not just from what's been shared in the chat, but with Gretchen for you all too. But there is, you really want to just copy what they're doing, and if you want to make a case to change something, then bring them the evidence that they need, including some points from this or some report outs from what you can glean from social media and things, and come to them and say, how do we align and work together on this, rather than you're doing it wrong and I need to change you. But yeah, it is kind of their job to control the brand and the creative briefs, but just figure out a way to align with them or copy what they're saying when you need to do communications. And usually when you come to another department with a solution and not a problem and not a challenge, hopefully they're willing to work with you on that. I think we got 1 minute, right, Jordania?
Yep, we're at the 74-minute mark.
73, 74. And shameless plug, make sure you're getting emails from Alive. And you can add alternate emails or your personal emails if you think you might be changing jobs or roles or whatever. But also fill out your Alive member profile. And that helps you connect with this wisdom in the room and this giant peer network. So if you have your member profile filled out or you participate in social media chats or threads, this is a great place to ask questions, not just specifically with me or Alive Academy, but I'm going to get you my contact info to follow, not just Alive's LinkedIn, but here's how you can reach me. You can find me on the Tweeters, on the LinkedIns, and on the book faces. Here's my direct email. Here's my website. And if you don't already know the YouTube channel, again, lots of great short little videos, highlights, and longer interviews, including one with Brittany coming up very, very soon. So thank you everyone for spending 75 minutes together. It's absolutely my pleasure. And it's impossible to cover all of this great stuff, even in 75 minutes, but thank you to Alive for having me back. And again, feel free to reach out to me and or Gretchen if you have any follow-up questions, and we'll have the recording and the slide deck and anything else that you're curious about. I can probably find a resource and email it over to you that hopefully doesn't get caught in your spam box. Anything else, Gretchen or Jordania? Gretchen's got her special headdress on.
Yes, my Encanto ears, earworm.
Encanto
Jordania,
ears.
a few follow-up slides.
Yes. Thank you so much, Dana. Amazing, wonderful information. I'm going to share the last couple of slides here and talk about a couple of more Alive things we've got going on.
Here's my stop share. There you go.
All right. Thank you. Let me pull up this again.
Actually, I'm on a keyboard, so I'm going to give you a little jingle. How's that?
Nice, nice.
I'm playing us out.
All right. So just a few more announcements. We want to continue to have this conversation. I think there's still a lot more information that we can discuss. You can continue the talking with Dana for the next 48 hours on our LinkedIn Alive member page, but only Alive members can access that LinkedIn page. But we would love to see you there. Gretchen just put the link there in the chat. So thank you for that, Gretchen. And we'll be continuing the conversation, like I said, for the next 48 hours. Also save the date for March 17th at 12 p.m. Eastern for the lovely Rebecca Hand. She will be presenting on transformational role of volunteer engagement professionals. We also want you to save the date for the next Alive Academy in April at 2 p.m. Eastern. Gretchen, you're going to have to help me with Joe's last name there.
I think it's Len Mitchie, but he'll tell us. So come to the webinar and find out.
All right. And he's going to be putting together some information for us on low to no budget, my favorite thing, volunteer appreciation. And then there are also opportunities to present at an academy in 2022 to level up your career and gain experience. So please let us know if you're interested in presenting at an Alive Academy. We also have committee positions available at Alive to volunteer. We would love for you to volunteer with Alive on a committee. Membership, marketing, programs, and advocacy are all committees that are looking for extra volunteers to add your voice to the conversation. And you can find out more about those at our website, volunteeralive.org. So again, we just want to thank you all for spending time with us. Thank you, Dana, for your valuable lessons and information. And we look forward to having you all join us at the next Alive Academy and join us online at on LinkedIn to continue the conversation.
Thank you, Dana. Thank you, everyone. Have a great weekend.